up. Let me pontificate upon your sorry state. You're only second rate.
Shadow of the Colossus is a remarkably good game. It is considered by many to be the best PlayStation 2 title to have ever come out. After playing the game myself, I can understand where everyone is coming from with this. Now, I will not say that it is my favorite PlayStation 2 title, but it is surprisingly good and a very unique and rewarding experience. Hi, this is my character Shinigami, and I am here today to give you my top 16 Shadow of the Colossus boss fights. Now, considering this game only has 16 bosses in it, you can tell already that I am going to talk about every single one of them and put them in the order. Now, just a couple disclaimers here. First of all, there was no boss in this game that I particularly hated, although there were some that were more frustrating than others. And another disclaimer, I am probably going to have spoilers in this. I have not planned out what I'm going to say at all, but, you know, when I'm talking about bosses, there's bound to be something where I talk about how I beat them. So, without further ado, let us get into the list. My number 16 spot goes to Colossi. Now, I'm not going to say that I hate this boss because I didn't hate him. As I said, I didn't hate any of the bosses. But this one had the most frustrating mechanic to it, in that if you got hit by this guy once, it was very possible that you were completely dead, because he was just going to keep ramming you the hell over and over again. Now, that is frustrating for a gamer. This is why. We don't like dying. Dying is bad. We don't want to be dying. Now, if we had had a few seconds to maybe get out of the way, even 1 second to get out of the way, we would have enjoyed that a little more. But it does have a saving grace in that it has an interesting strategy to defeat him, what with the torch and knocking him off the cliff and then fighting on his back. But that one little problem right there is what puts Colossi at my number 16. My number 15 spot goes to Bossaron. Bossaron was probably tougher than Colossi for me, but it didn't have the one hit, you're going to die move with it. It had its one very frustrating attack that was annoying as hell to dodge, and he was not very cooperative with getting over the geysers, but he was still kind of fun to fight. I mean, can you not say that you didn't have any fun at all with him? Sure, he got frustrating after he kept kicking your ass after a while, but when you finally got to his backside and you made it to the front and kicked his ass, did you not feel a sense of accomplishment? He was not the greatest boss battle. Like I said, he just would not cooperate with you, and that's why he goes at number 15. My number 14 spot goes to Valus. Valus is the opening boss of the game, and as such, he's probably not going to be as great as the later bosses. He basically works as a tutorial, and he works very well just as that. But the only reason he ranks so low for me is because he's not as memorable to me as the other bosses. Granted, he is still fun, and I greatly enjoyed having him to start off the game and get me used to fighting in the Shadow of the Colossus game. My number 13 spot goes to Quadratus. Quadratus is the successor to Valus, the opening boss of the game, and as such you can't expect him to be totally up to par with some of the later bosses, which is again why he ranks so low, and just that his boss battle wasn't quite as memorable as others. But he still had some interesting ideas, and he introduced us to some new things. It was fun shooting at the air at him, it was fun climbing up his back, finding his weak points and all that stuff. And as I said, the only reason he is so low is because his just wasn't as memorable to me as others. My number 12 spot goes to Kuromori, the lizard colossi thingy, who is about the size of Colossi but a little bit bigger, which hardly makes them colossi, but they are colossi because they are in the game. He is a little frustrating when you first get started off with trying to figure out how to fight him, but he's not as frustrating as some other bosses. But the reason he ranks this low is because he's not as memorable as other bosses to me either. He was fun, and once you figured him out, you know, he presented as a challenge. He wasn't too easy, but he was just kind of frustrating here and there. And that's the only reason he ranks this low, because he just wasn't memorable enough for me. My number 11 spot goes to Argus, the penultimate Colossi, which means that he's next to last in the game. Now, Argus has an interesting concept in that you have to make him destroy part of the environment to actually reach the top of his head. The problem is that sometimes he is too slow, and you really just want him to start doing what you want him to do. So sometimes you have to like whistle at him, or you have to wait and maybe make yourself a sandwich while he walks over to you. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but if you fought this boss, you know what I mean. Now, Argus was a pretty fun boss battle, and for the most part, I can't really say too much down about him, except that other than him being a little slow, is that he kind of moved around too much for me. I wish he would have moved around a little bit less, because it sometimes was hard just to get a shot on him. I think I had once where I jumped on his head and didn't get a shot even once. But Argus is still a fun boss battle, and he's very deserving of being in the game. Number 10 goes to Pelagia, the water buffalo giant thingy-mabobber who shoots thunder and crap. Now, the reason this guy ranks so low is mostly because of two reasons: swimming and the jumping. Swimming, I really didn't care so much for in this game. I just wish there would have been a way to, like, swim faster, perhaps. But this boss was just too memorable not to have at least somewhere higher on the list for me. You basically swim around to his backside, jump on his back, climb up, then you tell him where to go, jump off of him, jump on his balls, slash him, and then you keep going from there. And eventually he will fall. He wasn't the hardest boss in the game, but sometimes he was the most frustrating for getting to his weak spot, which was the reason for me he ranks so low, just for that reason. But he was still a very interesting boss, and I was very pleased when I fought him. My number 9 spot goes to Malice, the final Colossi of the game. Now, as the final boss of the game, you would think that maybe this guy would be up in my top 5 or something like that, but no, he's going to be at number 9 right now. Not that he's not a good boss battle, and not that he wasn't fun to fight, it's just that he wasn't as fun for me as some of the other ones. Now, this guy is humongous, and he is the second largest boss in the game, and the only other one not really being considered the largest because he's just a flying serpent type creature. Malice was a kind of a multi-part boss battle in that you actually had to make your way over to him and then climb his body before you could actually get into the part where you're going to do some real damage to him. The frustrating part for me is when you're trying to make your way to his head and you're climbing and it can't seem to get your guy to go in the direction that you want him to go. Now, that wasn't so bad because it didn't take away from the game too much, and Malice was still not ridiculously tough, but it was something that I would have liked to maybe be able to do a little bit easier, considering this game consists largely of climbing. But yes, Malice, number 9, you were fairly fun. My number 8 spot goes to Avion, the first flying Colossi of the game, and boy was he fun, and so gentle. I mean, this guy would not come after you unless you shot him with an arrow. We're such assholes for shooting him. Now, when you actually got into the boss fight itself, it was kind of fun. He would come after you. You had to grab onto his wing and hit his weak spots, while he was flying through the air doing barrel rolls and trying to flip you off and everything. It was really interesting the way you were just going on his back while he's flying through the air. And he wasn't especially difficult, but you did have to have a bit of a challenge, and you did have to hold on to him to get through the battle. Now, he wasn't really that tough, considering his attacks didn't do that much damage, and if you did get damaged by him, you were probably falling back in the water, which gave you some time to heal up, because this dude was not going to just attack you over and over again. And for that reason, he's going to be my number 8. My number 7 spot goes to Dirge. Dirge is the sand serpent-like Colossi, and he was actually really fun, even though you had to use the horse in the battle against him. This was when I first found out that the horse could actually be used to go on autopilot while you were aiming, which was nice because I didn't have to keep telling the horse to go faster and faster. Now, Dirge is very interesting in that he's a sand serpent who goes in and out of the sand but has eyes, which is really weird. Does he have red eye? Does he need to take clear eye? Who knows? But he is the Dirge, and he's coming after you, and you gotta shoot him in the eye. Because that's what you do to giant sand serpents. And once you hit him in the eye, you just have to make him smash into a wall and beat his ass. Now, he's not going to be my number 1, but he was a very fun boss battle, and he taught me some new things, which is why he's going to be number 7. My number 6 goes to Gaius. Gaius is considered by most people to be their favorite boss battle of the game, but for me, he just was more memorable than most. Gaius was a pretty fun boss battle, and it took a little while for me to actually figure out how to beat him. But once you did get started on him, it was very challenging, but not too challenging. You were able to find your way to get to his weak spots, and you were able to beat him. And once you figured out that there was a metal plate in the middle of the ground, you could really figure out how to beat him, because you knew to just get on the metal plate, he'd swing his sword down, and you could find a way to climb up. Now, as I said, Gaius was not the most memorable to me, but he was very fun, and he's one of the more aggressive ones. And for that, I'm going to place him at number 6. My number 5 spot goes to Barba. Barba, the manliest Colossi of them all. Manly because he has a beard. Manly because he's big and bad and nothing phases him unless you kill him. Barba, he's awesome. And he is going to be number 5 on my list. Now this is why. Barba was a fun boss battle. He just wasn't as fun as some of the others for me. You climbed over these walls and he would go right through them. He'd have him look down at you, climb his most manly of beards, and go for his weak spots. He shaked a little too much for me here and there, and it was sometimes kind of hard to figure out which way you were climbing, which is probably why he wasn't a little higher on my list, but number 5 is still a really nice position. My number 4 spot goes to Phalanx, the ridiculously giant dragon Colossi of the game. He is actually the largest Colossi of the game, even though he is not seen as the tallest. It's just because he's flying through the air. But he is massive if you actually pay attention to all the other Colossi in the game. This dude is like ridiculously big. And he actually is really fun to fight with the way you use Argo, and this is actually when I found out that I wasn't that horrible on a horse. And the reason he's going to rank this low is mostly just because the other 3 that I have up here just have a ridiculous amount of atmosphere for the most part, and were a little more challenging. Phalanx will not attack you at all. If you die in this boss battle, you are horrible. You just can't fight at all. Like I said, he will not attack you. Don't worry about it. This dude is the gentlest giant ever, and for that reason, he is my number 4. My number 3 spot goes to Phaedra, the giant warhorse Colossi. This Colossi was fairly large, but not necessarily as large as a lot of the other ones. His boss battle is very interesting and fun, and one of the first ones to really show you how to use strategy to beat a boss. In fact, I would say that he actually is the first one, because the other ones were a lot of climbing and stabbing at weak points. This one you actually had the trick to get to his weak point. You had to go in through these little tunnel things and have him peek down at you and then go up from behind and grab on him and start beating the crap out of him once you actually got on him. And I am very, very accepting of these memorable, inventive boss battles that Shadow of the Colossus is famous for. And for that reason, I'm going to put Phaedra as my number 3. He was a fun boss, and he was an interesting design, and the way you beat him was just very unique. My number 2 spot goes to Hydrus, the giant sea serpent Colossi with the electric spike things coming out of his back. Now, the big reason this one's going to be my number 2 is because of its atmosphere. It was not hard, but it was intimidating and absolutely breathtaking the way you fought this dude. I know this thing had swimming in it, which was not very good in this game in my opinion, but oh my gosh, this dude was awesome. I mean, you grabbed onto his back, and at first you were probably scared of going into the water like me. I kind of stayed on that bridge thing for a while, debating whether or not I should jump in at all until the thing on the screen told me to jump in. I mean, this dude scared the crap out of me when I first saw him. I did not want to get in there. Once you actually got on his back, though, this boss battle becomes extremely memorable and very fun. You climb on his back, and you go up and you knock out each of these 3 little electric spike things until you finally reveal his weak point. But all the while you're going up his back, he's going in and out of the water, and you have to hold on. I mean, maybe that's not the most challenging thing ever, but just the way it felt, it was so epic and dynamic. And Hydra's is my number 2 for that reason. But who could be number 1? If you've done Process of the Elimination, and you can remember what boss I haven't talked about, then you should know already which boss is my number 1 favorite boss of the game. My number 1 favorite boss is the 14th Colossi of the game, and his name is Zenobia. Now, obviously, I love this dude more than his other counterpart type thing with Colossia, or Colossia, whatever the hell you want to call him. Who cares? He wasn't that good anyways. But Zenobia was epic. This dude, you fought in this labyrinth-like area, and it was parkour and platforming and all that crap. It wasn't just a straightforward boss battle. You jumped on things, you jumped off things, you jumped on other things, and you eventually got his armor off of him. And that was epic. People say that they have a hard time fighting this boss because once he hits you, he can just keep hitting you over and over again. And while that is true, there is an easy way around this. Because there are large things to jump on, which is very different from the Colossia battle. Because, for one, you weren't used to fighting Colossia at the time, and for 2, there just wasn't that many things to jump on against Colossia. With Zenobia, though, there is crap all over the place, which is part of what makes this memorable to me, because there's all these ruins around, and it looks so beautiful. And the boss looks beautiful too. Look at him. Isn't he not a deer? Yes, but Zenobia, he is great. You all should know this by now. He is awesome, and if you did not like him, you're probably wrong, because he is awesome. Go back into that boss battle, fight him again now that you know everything, and remember this, when you're fighting him throughout the entire game, do not stay on the ground, just jump on crap. As long as you stay on something, he's not going to hit you. Even after you knock that awning thing onto him, you can still keep jumping on crap. Run out of that damn area, go jump on other things, have him ram into it, and then jump on his back. It's as easy as that. He's not a hard boss battle. It's just if you get hit by him once, you're probably going to die. But he was just so fun for me because all the running you had to do and all the jumping you had to do, jumping on and off of things, like I said, jumping on his back, stabbing the crap out of him, just beating the living hell out of this bastard who was so adorable. Yeah, not really adorable, but he was badass. And for that reason, he's... And that does it for my countdown of the top 16 Colossi of Shadow of the Colossus. Remember, this list is entirely my opinion and not necessarily yours, even though a lot of these opinions probably should be yours, because the ones that I said that were epic were truly epic, and the ones that I said sucked truly sucked. And actually, a lot of y'all, I know, agree on the ones that sucked at least, because I have seen just the consent all across the internet of ones that people dislike the most. But, as I said, my bosses were in a pretty good list, I think, because it's my list and it's nobody else's. And that's what makes me awesome. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this list. Leave your comments in the below area thing, the comment area, that place. You know, naturally, that's where comments would go. If you like this video, do what you want. I don't care. I just make this video because I wanted to make a top 16 Colossi video, and I hope you enjoyed it.